What starts as a thought and turns into a word can actually create a living hell in your life. Do you know you can turn your home into a living hell just by what you allow to access your heart? You really can. You can turn a beautiful relationship into a garbage dump. In fact, when Jesus says that you be in danger of the fires of hell, he's not so much speaking of something abstract and theoretical. He's referring to Gehenna, which the Jewish people would have been familiar with. It was like a place where they used to sacrifice humans. They would sacrifice their babies to the false god Moloch, and they abandoned that practice, but they kept it as a garbage dump. And it said that the fires of Gehenna never actually went out. And so there was always a smoldering fire in Gehenna. And he's bringing up this place, and he's saying that anger within your heart and unresolved conflict in your relationships, it can make your heart a living hell. I hope you guys enjoyed the sermon last week. This one's gonna be a little different this week, so I hope you were. But there's a reality to be examined here about the progression of offenses in our lives. Have you noticed that we live in an age of perpetual offense? I mean, everybody is offended about everything all the time. No, I'm serious. I have to pray for 20 minutes before I post anything on Instagram or Facebook, just to think about how can I possibly phrase this where I won't offend somebody. I remember a couple years ago that I put, and this is years ago and I still remember it, I put something on Twitter that I thought was very clever because I was studying a sermon on sanctification. And I was trying to find a way to preach about sanctification that wouldn't put the people to sleep. Because if I just stand up and say, I'm going to talk to you today about sanctification, I would lose a lot of my audience that isn't as spiritual as Brad. So I was trying to just put it in real terms, and God gave me this phrase. He said, you should live in your sermon. People don't need sermons that smell like a library. They need sermons that smell like real life. And I was so impressed with that thought, I put it on Twitter. I said, sermons should smell less like a library and more like real life. And this lady tweeted me back. She was a librarian. She wanted me to know she was highly offended. She said, great, just what I needed. My pastor taking shots at my chosen career and profession. How would you feel if you were a librarian? Well, lady, I didn't mean it like all that. Just offendable. Christians are the most offendable people on the planet, which is kind of ironic considering that our whole religion revolves around a relationship with somebody that dropped every offense that we had committed against him. That's kind of weird to me. I'm serious, man. You have to be really careful. People just get offended. I know I'm easily offended. God's working with me on this. He spoke to me a while back. He said, the reason it's so hard for you to stay happy is because it's so easy for you to get offended. If you want to make it easier to stay happy, make it harder for you to get offended. So I'm working on this becoming unoffendable project. And I want to invite you in on it because Jesus says that this offense, however it started with your brother and sister, if you entertain it, it creates a living hell. It spirals out of control. Things can spin out of control so quick you don't even know it's happening. And the enemy's agenda in your life is destruction. Thief comes to kill, steal, and destroy. That's John chapter 10, verse 10, note takers. And his agenda is destruction. Every good and perfect gift comes from above. God's a giver, enemy's a taker. He wants to destroy every good thing that God puts in your life. Okay, that's his agenda. His strategy is division. Jesus shared with us in Matthew 12:25 that a house divided against itself can't stand. Abraham Lincoln didn't say that, Jesus said it. Jesus said that if the enemy wants to destroy your house, the first thing he must do to destroy your house is to divide your house. Are there any newly married couples in church today? Newly married? Why are you clapping for them? They haven't proven anything yet. Is that pity applause? Newly married couples, just one more time, let's see. I'm saying maybe you're newly married, how new? A year, that counts. Would you come on the stage, do you mind? I don't want to embarrass you in any way. Is your wife here? She's not here? No. You gotta sit down. And you would have been great too. Anybody here with your wife that's newly married and you guys actually made it to church together today? I'm just kidding. I'm sure she's serving Anikas. Would you? 2 years? 2 years? Yeah. Come on if you don't mind. Come on, let's give them a hand. Come on guys, give them a hand. This is brave. They have no idea what they're getting into. Now, I'm not just gonna preach about marriage, Coach Dave, but I figure if I use a marriage illustration, apply to every relationship. Keep clapping while they come. Come on guys, and clap. Your name? Stephanie and Dan. Good to have you guys. Yeah, come on all the way up. That'll be great. Let me show you what the devil wants to do in your relationship, because God said that the two shall become one. This is exactly what the enemy wants. So every battle you're gonna fight, every argument about the dishes, really, it's the enemy's agenda is destruction. And so his strategy is division. And the enemy, I don't know if you believe in the devil or not, but the enemy, Stephanie's not gonna be happy until he sees you like this. And what I just showed you, the Bible says that marriage is even a picture of Christ and the church. So what he wants to do to them, he wants to do to this whole church. And what he wants to do to them, he wants to do to you and your teenager, what he wants to do to them. And so his agenda is destruction. He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. His strategy is division. And here's his tactic, and this is the part I want to preach about. And I appreciate you helping me, because you guys are gonna help me preach this sermon today. His tactic is offense. Satan has an offensive strategy. Because if he walked up to you, I don't know how I forgot your name already. Tell me one more time. Dan the man. Come on, it's Dan the man, everybody. And if the devil were not subtle, Dan wouldn't stand for his schemes. But the enemy is very strategic. And Jesus is giving us, really in Matthew chapter 5, kind of a playbook of how the enemy wants to work in your relationship. And I know Dan's not gonna let him, but he's gonna try. Now, he won't make an announcement, hey, I'm coming to kill and steal and destroy. You know, because right now you just spend all those money on the flowers and the dresses and all the groomsmen and all that stuff. And I know it's been a couple of years, and that's good, because what you see in those first couple of years is you see that the enemy will usually start in a small way. Because if he announced, I've come to divide, Dan the man wouldn't stand for that if the devil came in to divide. Come on, stick your chest out, Dan. Dan ain't having it. Dan ain't having it. But if the enemy can just, what he'll do, he'll just use the littlest offense. And what Jesus is doing in Matthew chapter 5, he's showing us how to deal with the offense so we can keep the devil on defense. How many want to keep the devil on defense in your life and in your family? Come on, church. So, you guys, if you sit back down, I'll bring you back in a minute, but I don't want you to have to stay up here the whole time. But just stay ready, okay? All right, we're going to come back to here. Last week when I was preaching, I don't know if you remembered, how many of you were here last week? Make some noise. If the person next to you isn't making noise, touch them and say, you really missed it. You really missed it. I remember talking about, you got this plank in your eye, and you're so concerned about the little speck in my eye. Meanwhile, you're walking around your big old plank, just whacking them on the head, just causing distraction, division, and all this stuff. And it's the contrast between the small things and the big things. And there are times that a big offense, there's not a week that goes by, Holly, would you agree that somebody doesn't call me for counsel that's going through a marriage situation like a divorce, a separation? Buck, is this true? It's not a week that goes by. It'll be another pastor or maybe a situation in the church. And I get to talking to them about what happened. And if you can go back far enough, you find that every plank is made up of a lot of specks. And to me, that's the heart of Jesus' teaching. I really didn't read you the whole passage because I want to break it down and show you how it happens. He said it could be something as small as a word. Now, write this down. The closer the relationship, the greater the opportunity. And that goes both ways. The closer the relationship, the greater the opportunity for intimacy. However, the closer the relationship, the greater the opportunity for offense. That's why nobody can make you really mad like somebody that you really love. Really. Nobody can hurt you like somebody that you've given your heart to. No, nobody. And I've asked the question a lot of times of people, and really in my own mind, I've seen people that were so loyal to each other, and if you would have asked me 10 years ago, who is most likely to ever have kind of an enemy relationship, or who's most likely to be a divorce, or who's most likely to not be speaking to each other. And some of those very same people, just in the last year of my life, even, I've watched some things happen that surprised me. You kind of, every time you see it, you ask the question, how did we get here? Did you see how big Dan was smiling over Stephanie? Now, they're gonna have a great marriage and all of that, and it's gonna be awesome, but you ask the question, how could somebody who had that same hope, that same smile, barely stand to be in the room with somebody 2 kids later? And it happens, and there's all kinds of ways that it happens. I know there's compatibility, and I know that it's not always something that you can fix, because it takes 1 to forgive, but it takes 2 to be reconciled. And I guess I want you to know that my goal today isn't to so much do an autopsy of anybody's mistakes, but just to show you something that happens. It always happens 1 offense at a time. Yes, there are betrayals, and yes, there's adultery, and yes, there's abuse. I'm not really talking about those big things so much today as I am what Jesus was talking about. He said, if you get something in your heart against your brother or sister, and then you nurse it and rehearse it long enough, it will literally create a smoldering garbage dump of fire in the very relationship that was once a garden of potential and love. How does this happen? It happens 1 offense at a time. How did we get here where we're smiling like everything is okay, but deep down in my heart, you know, when we come to church, man, nobody sees this stuff. When we come to church, watch this. Jesus says in verse 23, he says, if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar and get it right with the person that it's not right with before you sing a song or pray a prayer to try to cover up the fact that your relationships are under attack. We were singing today in church this song, this beautiful worship song, man. You should have seen the people singing it, and people had their hands lifted. Mercy is falling, falling. And that's what was coming out of some people's mouths, but if you could see what's going on in their heart, Jesus says it's possible for you to be doing something on an outward level, and at an inward level, you're full of anger and resentment. Mercy is falling, falling, except on my husband. He's a jerk. In the presence of the Lord. If you could hear what was happening in the hearts of people, how do we get here? Jesus says it starts small, but 1 offense at a time. The devil wants to tear Dan's heart from Stephanie's heart. You know, God takes the 2 and makes them 1. The enemy takes the 1 and makes them 2. How does he do it? 1 offense at a time. And God knows I need this message, man, because I'm not a perfect husband. I give 97% of the credit for the happiness that exists in my marriage to my wife. 3% is me. I'm pretty proud of that 3. But if you put me in the wrong situation, I can get offended so quick. Just like on Twitter, there was 1 woman that went off on me, and I still remember what she said 3 years later. You know, thousands of people have said nice things to me. But I'm quick to find the offense. We can train ourselves to find the offense and then just overreact, man. It starts off as raka, you fool. Next thing you know, I'm in living hell. And watch how bad it gets. Jesus said it can get so bad if you don't deal with it, if you don't learn how to deal with this, Dan, if you don't deal with the little things, the little foxes. He says, if you don't settle matters quickly, verse 25, with your adversary who is taking you to court. Now that confused me because in verse 21, we were talking about your brother or sister, right? We're talking about somebody you're close to. In verse 25, we're talking about your adversary. I always assume these are two different people. What if it's not? What if the same person who you called brother and sister in 21 is the same person who will be your enemy in 25 if you don't learn how to deal with offense? It happens. You ever thought about that? That the person who, he says, the person who doesn't deal with the offense, and it's interesting how he says it, if you don't settle matters quickly. That's so powerful. Settle matters quickly with your adversary who's taking you to court. Do what you can while you are still together on the way. Or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer. And you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you'll not get out until you paid the last penny, the prison of offense. And it all started with Raka. It all started with Raka, the small offense. It all started in the parking lot. I was backing out, and this guy's honking his horn at me in his pickup truck just a couple months ago. I took the boys to see that football movie, the Christian football movie, okay? Woodlawn. We went and saw Woodlawn. Made a deep impression on me. We're leaving the movie, and this guy, he's hollering at me because his wife wants my parking spot. The problem with his wife wanting my parking spot is she is pulled up so close on my parking spot, I can't get out to give it to her. And now that's somehow my fault to this guy in the pickup truck. So he says to me, or offers a course of action to me, hey, get out of her way. She's waiting on your spot. And I'm like, and then I figure out that this is his wife because I'm putting it all together. And I rolled down my window and I said something back to him. No, it wasn't any profanity or anything like that, but it was a Raka type thing that I said. Something about his wife's driving skills or something, something like that, just something insinuate. But then he wants to get out of his truck. And he's not bigger than me. So now I gotta get out of my Maxima. Because I got to. Because my boys are watching this, and I need to be a good example that if a man gets out of his pickup truck and challenges you, it doesn't matter whether you have an elevation sticker on your car, you gotta handle it. Why are you clapping for me? I'm so bewildered. And I got out, and I said, what are we gonna do? Just a question. Just a question. It's just a question. And I don't know what happened next. I think to this day, I still don't know because his tone changed dramatically. I don't think he was intimidated by me. I think he realized who I was. I think so, because it was right here in town. And so I think he put the sticker and the thing together, because all of a sudden he turned real spiritual. He was like, well, God bless you, man. We're just all trying to get where we're trying to go. And I was like, yeah, we are. And around this time, Graham comes out the car. He's 8, he comes over and stands by me. And he said, you got your boys and I got my wife. I said, it's cool, man. We got over here, we got back in the car. And I said, when Graham got in the car, I said, Graham, what were you gonna do? And Graham said, I was gonna kick him in the shin if I had to. And Elijah, my older son, he speaks up and says, Daddy, a better question is, what were you going to do? I said, whatever needed to be done, son. I hadn't thought that far about it. And he said, well, think about it. I mean, let's say you get in a fight in the parking lot of the movie theater. Not only are the news people going to put you on the news, but we might not even ever see you again. We're in the back of the car, and maybe they leave us, and then maybe you end up in prison, and maybe we don't have a dad. Did you think about that? And I said, that's right, son. I'm giving you an example of how not to handle a situation. And we went and ate some Mexican food. And here's why I told you that story. When you are in these moments, I'm talking about not with somebody in the parking lot, I'm talking about with somebody you love. You're not thinking through the fact that this is gonna end up with me and you and an attorney sitting down talking about dividing our assets. That's not how division happens, because the enemy's agenda is destruction, his strategy is division, but his tactic is those little offenses. Come on, Dan and Stephanie, come back. I need your help, because bring out my garden. Come on, it's Dan and Stephanie, everybody. 2 years. We're gonna get them to 20. We're gonna get you to 20. I so appreciate your help. I'm gonna send you guys to your favorite restaurant. What's your favorite restaurant, Stephanie? What's her favorite restaurant?
I was gonna say Bakersfield, but it's P.F. Chang's.
P.F. Chang's, I love it too. So here's a garden. This represents the love of a relationship and all the potential of a relationship. And this, of course, represents the offenses that are going to come into your relationship. Now, you don't have to be married to get a whole lot out of what I'm saying right now. This will apply to anybody in your life who is important to you and show you exactly what the enemy will try to do. Like, for instance, I don't know if Stephanie's a good cook or not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good. And I was talking to my mom this morning. No, my mom lives here in Charlotte, and she reminded me of this story. This is hilarious. It just shows how offenses can come. Because the question isn't, are offenses going to come into your relationship? That's not the question. They're gonna come. They're gonna come. The question is, what are you gonna do with them? That's what determines whether or not you keep a strong relationship with God, with others, with yourself. So my mom was telling me they were at my father's mom's house, so my grandmother, my dad's mom's house for Thanksgiving, and she made some stuffing. Do you know that? Yeah. And when my grandmother made some stuffing, and the way I understood the story, my dad was sitting there eating his mom's stuffing. And while he's eating the stuffing, he says, trying to give a compliment to his mom, he's like, Mom, nobody makes stuffing like you. I mean, other people try to make stuffing, but nobody can make it like you. And my mom is thinking, while he's saying, nobody makes stuffing like you, my mom is thinking, and nobody is going to make stuffing for you except your mom, so you better invite your mom to be your cook if nobody makes stuffing like her. And my mom said, I didn't make that man stuffing on Thanksgiving for the next 6 years. And I said, can I tell the church that story? It's a good illustration. She said, yes, as long as you clarify that I really do make better stuffing than your grandmother. Now, I got you holding that because he says this stuff. He says these unintentional things because men are stupid. We just say stuff. We don't realize what we're saying, and we just say stuff. And maybe Dan hasn't done it yet. To me, he looks like an intelligent man, but he's going to say something. And it will be unintentional in his mind. He's just saying it. He's just saying something. He just says stuff. Or sometimes it's not what they say, it's what they don't do. It's an unmet expectation. That is the breeding ground of offenses in relationships. Unmet expectations. And let me tell you the breeding ground of unmet expectations, unexpressed expectations. So you gotta learn how to talk to people. Otherwise, like, let's say growing up in Stephanie's house, birthdays were a big deal. But maybe at Dan's house, they didn't make a big deal about birthdays. Because, hey, what did you do? You didn't do anything on your birthday. You were just born. So maybe on birthdays at Dan's house, nobody celebrates the fact that you just came out into the world like it was some great achievement. But Stephanie wakes up and her mom used to make her pancakes on her birthday, and her dad had a special song that he would sing. I don't know, I'm making this stuff up. I never met Stephanie and Dan before. I was making a scenario. And so Dan wakes up on the birthday and he's gonna take her out to P.F. Chang's that night because that's her favorite place, she said. But now it's morning time and it's like 7 and there's no pancakes and there's no special song and there's no thing. And so now all of a sudden it's the first birthday they spend as a married couple, and he wakes up and gives her a little kiss and goes to work and leaves her with an offense. And you're like, well, that's stupid. She shouldn't get so offended over that. Well, you get offended over some stuff too, some little things, and you hold it. And it won't just be you offending her. Let's say you're working really hard. This used to happen in me and Holly's marriage. This is an example I did not ask for permission to share. When I discovered that her recreational preference was shopping. And so she said, me too. So you come home on Saturday, Holly would come home on Saturday, and she would be energized, and she would have bags all over her arms. But to me, those bags didn't look like shopping bags. Those bags looked like grenades to be launched into our financial picture. Here I am trying to work. She's walking in with all these bags, looking how high, and then she has the nerve to say, don't worry, because I got it on. And this is what the devil wants, all right? Now Dan is trying to fall asleep on Saturday night. And again, I'm just making this up, but she handed you this offense. She wasn't trying to offend you. She was just shopping. It was just her thing. But Dan is working. And doesn't she see how hard I'm working? And how does she expect us to get ahead financially? And like the last thing she needs is another pair of shoes. And the enemy's like, yeah, that's good, Dan. That's good. She doesn't care about you. She doesn't respect you. She doesn't appreciate all that you're doing to provide for her. She's working against you. It's just a little offense. Meanwhile, Stephanie is still stuck on her birthday. It was 4 months ago. She's still mad about the pancakes. Come here, Stephanie. And she's over here and she's still nursing that thing about the birthday. And see, it's every time she thinks about it, it gets a little deeper. She'll drive it down in there with every thought and reliving it and thinking about what he said and what she did and what they didn't say and didn't pay attention to me and don't appreciate me, and it drives it down deeper. And marriage is gonna give you, because it's the most intimate relationship, and the more intimate the relationship, the more infinite the potential for offense. And so you're gonna have like a million offenses, little offenses. And if you don't learn how to deal with them, because sometimes the thing that you liked about her when you were dating will drive you crazy now that you have to wake up with it every day. No offense to Stephanie, I'm sure she's wonderful. You're like, oh, why would you say that about her? It's true about everybody. Here's how the country preacher said it. He said, before marriage, opposites attract. After marriage, opposites attack. Amen. That's how the country preacher said it. And so, I know it's kind of heavy. That's how offenses are, but it's not all at once. It's just one at a time. So like, let's say that before marriage, you liked her because she is mysterious and quiet, and that draws you to her. But then in marriage, it can go this way to where it was really attractive that she was quiet and mysterious when you were dating her, but now in marriage, she won't ever talk. And it's like, no, but yeah, but no, but just for example. And it's like, why won't you tell me what's on your mind? But that's why you liked her. And before you married him, he was the life of the party. And he walked in and he just talked and lit up the room. And now, why won't he ever shut up? Dan will not shut up. Shut up, Dan. And so what actually was part of building the foundation of the relationship, now it's offense. And it happens a million different ways. And the enemy will give you all kinds of opportunities. And you don't realize what's happening because it's just one little conversation after another, you know? It's just dressing on Thanksgiving. It ain't a big thing. It's just me trying to tell Holly how to drive and her saying, well, then why don't you drive if you're such a good driver? And we have a lot of dysfunction in our relationship over what happens in the car because I can't find my way places and she can't drive. So she has a great sense of direction, but horrible driving skills. I'm a great driver with no sense of direction. So the other night, we're driving, coming from a movie, as a matter of fact, not the Christian football movie, but we're coming back, and she almost got us killed. And I was mad because, to me, she wasn't paying attention. And we talked about that later, and she was like, well, you know, if you want to be in control of how the car works, there's a different seat you can sit in. Shut up! Rock up! Rock up! That's the biggest problem you have? No, it's not the biggest problem we have. It's just the one I'm going to tell you about. It's none of your business what problems we have. But see, offense by offense, if we don't learn what to do about this, the enemy would love just one conversation after another. You don't make a decision to walk away from a relationship that you love. You don't see them becoming your enemy in Matthew 5:25. It's just one unacknowledged effort after another. And you start thinking, well, I'm the only one who ever takes out the trash around here. Well, I guess I'll do it again, like always. No, it's good, I got it. I got it, it's not a problem. I would love to get up with the kid again in the middle of the night. No, it's fine, I know, you gotta work. And now, what started as just a small offense, now, what God joined together is separated because of offense. And now the crazy thing is, Jesus said, if you let it get to this point, if you live your relational life on the basis of, well, I'm not apologizing first, I apologized first last time. If you don't learn how to deal with these things, you find yourself in prison. It's not them that you imprison. It's you. Hey, Dan? Why don't we talk anymore? Where did the love go? Dan, we haven't been to P.F. Chang's in 3 years, Dan. You built offense. The enemy's agenda is destruction. His strategy is division, and his tactic is offense. Thankfully, God has given us another way to deal with offense. If only we could find an example of somebody who had every right to be offended, of somebody who had every right to hold it against us, of somebody who had every right to stand at a distance, but opened his arms and said, this is the way of relationship. And the Lord gave me a real specific word for somebody who needs reconciliation in your relationship. It's very simple what they have to do. If they're gonna stay like they started, if we're gonna get back to where we were, we're gonna have to learn, watch this, this is very profound, it's deep, you're gonna miss it. This is what you're gonna have to learn. You gotta learn to drop it. You gotta learn to drop it. And I don't mean suppress it. I don't mean you don't deal with things after they happen. But after you've had the conversation, Dan, I like pancakes on my birthday, then drop it. Touch somebody, say drop it. I mean the moment the offense, because you can't always control what's handed to you, but you can control what you do with it. So what are you gonna do with the offense? Come on, Dan, you can't choose anybody else's actions. The enemy wants you to drive it down deep. You know, he wants you to think about it and miss all the reasons that the person has worked their way into your life and miss all the things they've done for you. And he wants to drive it, but God says, drop it. I believe that there are some things that we need to drop tonight. In fact, Jesus said, this is so important, that if you are in church at the altar offering a gift and a sacrifice, but the primary relationships in your life are dysfunctional and need reconciliation, you can't even properly connect with God unless you drop it. Do it again, Dan. Drop it. Every time they do it, I want you to reinforce it. 1, 2, 3, drop it. What are you gonna do when they don't acknowledge you, when they don't notice you? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when they are too busy to show you the love and affection, but you know that they're trying as hard as they can to? You gotta. I'm telling you, being married, being in a close relationship is about not how quickly you can get offended, but how quickly you can get over it. And I want everyone to stand at every location because I want to pray for some people. Thank you, guys. Would you give them some love? That was amazing. They're walking off hand in hand. I asked the Lord to help me in this message in a way. He said, you need to pray for people for not what they're going to experience while they're in the church, but what's going to happen when they leave. Because, you know, you can offer a gift at the altar and feel pretty good about it, but what's happening back at home can be a living hell. And when I read those words of Jesus, that he said that when you don't deal with the offenses, and when you don't drop the offenses, when you allow it to become resentment in your life, because hey, sometimes reconciliation isn't possible. I mean, sometimes the person is dead that you've held the offense against. Sometimes the person isn't willing. But release is always available. Release starts in your heart. Smead said that forgiveness is setting a prisoner free and finding out the prisoner was you. So I believe God wants to release some people today. Release you from some things you've been holding on to. Some things that have been keeping you at a distance, some things that have been keeping you divided. And then in these closing moments of our time together today, there are some things by the power of the cross of Jesus Christ that God is going to bring to mind, some offenses that you've been building in some very important relationships, and that God is going to begin to demolish your excuses and break down your pride and your walls today. And that we're gonna receive hundreds of testimonies from the word that went forth today of a process of reconciliation and healing that began between husbands and wives, between parents and children, between friends that haven't spoken. God says, drop it. Man, I feel the spirit of Snoop coming on me right now. And I wanna say drop it like it's hot. Come on, you gotta drop it while you can. He said, do it while you're still on the way, or this won't end well with you. Unchecked resentment leads to regret. Unbelievable regret. And you don't want that for your life. So with everyone standing today, I want to ask you a question. If God dropped the charges against you, What offense is there in the universe that you can't let go of? It's not just flowing to me. The forgiveness of God flows through me. And because I'm forgiven, I can forgive. Now, before I pray, I'm not saying that you tolerate abuse. I'm not saying any of that. Here's what I'm saying. Offense is an event. Offended is a decision. Again, offense is an event. They hurt me. Offense is an event. We need to work through this. But to live offended as a believer in Jesus Christ and to stay that way and to live in that place denies the very nature of the salvation that you claim to have received. So we want to make some decisions today. If you feel comfortable, would you just lift your hands as a sign of release? Nobody's looking at you. Don't even worry about the crowd right now. Father, in this moment, we come before you and we just release. First of all, we acknowledge our own part. Sometimes we are so quick to see the ways we've been offended and we miss the ways that we've offended. So we open our hearts to you and we thank you for grace and we thank you for mercy. And we lift our hands in your presence because we want to be free. We lift our hands in your presence because we don't want to withhold anything and we want to be right. And so we offer our gift on the altar. But God, we ask, would you do a work in us? Some of us have some stuff happening back at home and in our hearts and in our relationships that is killing our joy and killing our peace. So we've come into your presence today, not just to sing a song or to hear a sermon, but to be changed at our core, to be changed. And we've got some things we need to drop. With your hands still lifted in the air, I want you to ask God in your heart, is there anything I need to drop? Is there something I need to drop? Is it a decision I need to make in my heart to never bring it up again? Is it a conversation I need to have to work through it? What do I need to drop? Keep your hands lifted. You feel how
in the haze of neon dreams, I wander through the night, lost in a sea of stars where your whispers take flight. Electrified emotions, they dance around my heart in this digital garden where we never have to part. Shadows blend with colors as the beat sets me free. Every note a memory, every rhythm you and me. Echoes of you in synth waves, feel you near in the pulsing haze. It's such a world where we collide. You lost the rhythm in my mind. With the glow of city lights, our shadows intertwine in this kaleidoscope of love where the past and future align. With every step I take, I feel your presence strong, and this digital symphony where our hearts belong. Shadows blend with colors as the beat sets me free. Every note a memory, every rhythm you and me. Echoes of you in synth waves, feel you near in the pulsing haze. It's such a world where we collide. You lost the rhythm in my mind. And in silence between the beats, I find your voice. In the flicker of the lights, I see your choice. Together in this dream we'll never fade. In the echoes of our love will always stay. Echoes of you in synth waves, feel you near in the pulsing haze. It's such a world where we collide. You lost the rhythm in my mind. Music fades away in the quiet of the night. Your echoes stay with me in the softest light. In this digital garden quiet of the night. Your echoes stay with me in the softest synth light. In this digital car.